I want to respond to Nietzschean 101's thoughtful and interesting video, Violence Against the State. I would suggest that viewers look at his video before consulting mine, because I'll be jumping around from topic to topic, and that's based on what Nietzschean 101 had to say. Nietzschean 101 begins with a quotation from Frank S. Meyer, a writer, and to paraphrase what he says basically the state is not synonymous with the governed. I would say that's true, but it hardly follows that the state must be inimical to the governed, as much right libertarian political thought seems to suggest. There need not be an us versus them, or even, to use Nietzschean 101's term, an us and them relationship between the individual and the state. The state can exist in an adjunctive relationship to the individual in a way that's beneficial and salutary. As a matter of fact, I look to the models of the social democracies, particularly in the Norwegian states, to show as an indication of states that function in ways that are beneficial and salutary to the individual. Meyer also says that in much political thought the state gets, and I'm quoting now, hallowed with the aura of universality. Now, I think that is so exaggerated that it's close to being a strong man. One would have to look at the socialistic phase of a Marxist-Leninist state to find a state that has the aura of universality in political thought. It's not true of the Norwegian social democracies that I cited, and it's certainly not true of the relatively limited government that we have in the United States of America. As far as the state becoming an unwieldy leviathan is concerned, which is something that I detect Nietzschean 101 is concerned about, I happen to agree with Barack Obama and what he said in his inaugural address about the right size of government. He said, and I'm quoting, "The question we ask today is not whether our government is too big or too small, but whether it works." The proper size of government is entirely a pragmatic question. It should be the size best suited to meet the needs of its citizenry, to the extent that government can and should properly meet those needs. Now, that's a large subject and it could encompass several videos, but that's what I think about it. I'm a little concerned when I hear the cant, the discourse about government becoming too large. I often think, where's the discourse about government being the right size to meet the needs of its citizenry? Where are people talking about that? That almost never seems to be some issue that's raised, and I think it's a valid question. Nietzschean 101 also quotes from Karl Popper, and to paraphrase what Popper has to say, he says resistance, potentially even violence, should be used when government abrogates its democratic nature and is inimical to democratic institutions. That is, citizens have an obligation to overthrow government when it becomes tyrannical. Now, I think that Popper's statement is so self-evidently correct that it almost goes without saying. I think a more interesting question is, when a democratic state is so beholden to special interests that its democratic functions are vitiated, such that it no longer serves the interests of the vast majority of people, is violence or resistance against such a state or those special interests justified then? A state whose democratic institutions are nullified by special interests, like large corporate power, is just as useless to a people than is a tyrannical state. And it seems to me that in this post-Cold War world that we live in, that's a more relevant question today than you know, are governments likely to become tyrannies? I think that it's more interesting to ask. It's more likely that um, governments are not going to become tyrannies so much as they're going to marginalize the needs of the vast majority of their people in order to serve the needs of some well entrenched and almost likely wealthy special interests. Nietzsche in 101 asks the question, when is government when is violence against government ever justified? Well, when, as Popper said, when it becomes tyrannical, that would be a justification. When its democratic institutions become ineffectual, as I've been suggesting previously, and I would add, when the state becomes so implacable to change that no conceivable democratic means of changing it seems possible, and only revolutionary resistance or violence presents itself as the most viable means to change it. So I would think those three conditions would be a place I would start in terms of answering that question. But it's very easy for us to blithely and theoretically be speculating about something as serious as revolutionary resistance or revolutionary violence. Revolutionary resistance and violence is not a matter to be taken lightly. Think about it. Given the weapons available to governments and to individuals today, a large-scale resistance or violent revolution would almost certainly result in the death of multitudes. So, revolution, it seems to me, should always be a last resort. Thanks.